of the safest forms of transportation, with strict regulations, advanced technology, and highly trained professionals ensuring smooth flights daily. But when tragedy does strike, it sends shockwaves through the entire aviation world. In today's video, we're examining the 5 deadliest airplane crashes in U.S. history. Disasters that not only claimed hundreds of lives, but also reshaped the way we approach aviation safety. And at the end, we'll answer a burning question. Are crashes like these becoming more frequent? If you find stories like this both powerful and important, hit that subscribe button now, and let's explore what went wrong and what's been learned. Number 1. American Airlines Flight 191 Des Plaines, Illinois, 1979. On May 25, 1979, what was supposed to be a routine flight from Chicago to Los Angeles turned into the worst air disaster in U.S. history. American Airlines Flight 191, a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, took off from Chicago O'Hare International Airport just after 3 p.m. But 31 seconds into the flight, the left engine separated from the wing, flipping over the top and severing hydraulic and electrical systems critical to flight safety. The aircraft banked sharply to the left, rolled almost inverted, and slammed into an open field adjacent to a trailer park. All 271 people on board were killed instantly, along with 2 people on the ground. Investigators discovered that maintenance crews had used a forklift to remove the engine and pylon assembly in a shortcut method that was not approved by McDonnell Douglas. This improper technique weakened the mounting structure over time, leading to its catastrophic failure. The crash exposed major gaps in airline maintenance practices and oversight. In the months following, the FAA grounded all DC-10s until updated inspection and maintenance protocols were enforced. Airlines were required to adhere more strictly to manufacturer guidelines, and the FAA increased scrutiny of airline maintenance procedures. Flight 191 became a watershed moment in U.S. aviation. Not only did it result in stricter maintenance rules, but it also ushered in greater transparency in how airlines report maintenance records to regulators. To this day, it stands as a chilling reminder of what can happen when shortcuts are taken in the name of efficiency. Number 2. TWA Flight 800, Atlantic Ocean, New York, 1996. TWA Flight 800 departed New York's JFK Airport on the evening of July 17, 1996, en route to Paris with 230 people on board. Just 12 minutes after takeoff, as the Boeing 747 climbed over the Atlantic Ocean, a catastrophic explosion tore the aircraft apart mid-air. The wreckage rained down into the sea off the coast of Long Island, and there were no survivors. After a 4-year investigation, the NTSB concluded the explosion was caused by a spark in the center fuel tank, ignited by faulty wiring. The tank contained flammable fuel vapors, and a tiny arc of electricity was enough to trigger a devastating blast. The crash shocked the world not only because of the lives lost, but also because of how vulnerable older aircraft systems could be. Investigators found that the wires leading to the fuel tank had become brittle and cracked over time. The 747's aging design had never fully accounted for fuel vapor ignition risk. In response, new rules were implemented to require nitrogen inerting systems in aircraft fuel tanks, especially those positioned near heat-generating equipment like air conditioning packs. These systems reduce oxygen levels to a point where fuel vapors can't ignite. TWA Flight 800 fundamentally changed how aircraft wiring and fuel systems are designed and maintained. It showed that even in the absence of human error, mechanical and design flaws could prove fatal. The tragedy also marked a turning point in how aviation accidents are investigated, with transparency, interagency cooperation, and scientific rigor leading the way. 3. American Airlines Flight 587, Belle Harbor, New York, 2001. On the morning of November 12, 2001, just 2 months after the September 11 attacks, American Airlines Flight 587 departed JFK Airport in New York, bound for the Dominican Republic. Shortly after takeoff, while climbing to cruising altitude, the Airbus A300 encountered wake turbulence from a preceding Japan Airlines 747. What happened next would leave a community devastated. In response to the turbulence, the first officer made aggressive side-to-side rudder inputs in an effort to stabilize the plane. These inputs exceeded the aircraft's structural limits, causing the vertical stabilizer to detach completely. Without this crucial component, the plane became uncontrollable. Within seconds, it spiraled downward and crashed into the Bell Harbor neighborhood of Queens. The crash killed 260 people aboard and 5 people on the ground. It remains the second deadliest aviation disaster on U.S. soil. The investigation revealed several troubling factors. Chief among them was the pilot's misunderstanding of the aircraft's rudder system, and the fact that Airbus rudder controls were more sensitive than many pilots were trained to expect. This raised urgent questions about pilot training, especially when transitioning between different aircraft types. The tragedy led to significant changes in flight simulator training programs. Pilots were now trained to better understand and avoid overuse of the rudder, especially during wake turbulence. Additionally, aircraft manufacturers began working to design rudder systems that provided better tactile feedback to prevent overcorrection. This crash also had a lasting emotional toll on the Dominican American community in New York, which lost many loved ones in the disaster. 4. Colgan Air Flight 3407, Clarence Center, New York, 2009. On February 12, 2009, Colgan Air Flight 3407 was en route from Newark, New Jersey to Buffalo, New York, operating as a Continental Connection flight. The aircraft, a Bombardier Dash 8Q400, was nearing its destination in snowy weather when it suddenly lost control and crashed into a house in Clarence Center. All 49 people on board and 1 person in the house were killed instantly. The aircraft entered an aerodynamic stall while on approach. In most situations, a stall is recoverable if proper procedures are followed. But in this case, the captain reacted incorrectly, pulling the yoke back rather than pushing forward to regain airspeed. This incorrect response, combined with ice accumulation on the wings and flaps, proved fatal. What made the crash especially tragic was what investigators uncovered about the airline's operations. Colgan Air, like many regional carriers, paid its pilots far less than major airlines. And the captain had previously failed several flight proficiency tests. The first officer had commuted overnight from Seattle and was likely fatigued. Audio from the cockpit revealed casual conversation during final approach, a violation of the sterile cockpit rule. The crash sparked nationwide outrage and forced lawmakers to take a hard look at the regional airline industry. In response, Congress passed the Airline Safety and FAA Extension Act of 2010, which raised the minimum required flight hours for first officers from 250 to 1,500. The legislation also addressed crew fatigue, training, and qualification standards. Colgan Air Flight 3407 was a wake-up call. It proved that cutting corners on pilot experience and rest can have deadly consequences. It also demonstrated that the safety gap between major carriers and regional airlines needed urgent attention. Since then, regional carriers have faced pressure to improve pilot pay, training quality, and safety culture, ensuring that all passengers, no matter the ticket price, receive the same level of safety and professionalism. Number 5. 2025 Potomac River Mid-Air Collision, Washington, D.C., 2025. The most recent addition to the list occurred on January 29, 2025, over the Potomac River near Washington, D.C. A mid-air collision between a commercial Bombardier CRJ-700 operated by an East Coast regional airline and a U.S. Army UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter shocked the nation. The two aircraft collided during the early afternoon, just miles from the National Mall. Witnesses reported hearing a loud explosion and seeing debris fall into the water. Despite immediate response efforts from the Coast Guard and emergency services, all 67 people aboard both aircraft were killed. Preliminary findings revealed that both aircraft had clearance to operate in the same airspace, but a breakdown in communication between civilian and military air traffic controllers may have led to a lack of situational awareness. The Black Hawk had been conducting routine operations, while the CRJ-700 was climbing to its cruising altitude after departing from Reagan National Airport. The incident reignited concerns over airspace coordination in densely trafficked urban zones, especially those with overlapping civilian and military operations. It also raised questions about the effectiveness of current radar systems, deconfliction software, and flight path oversight. In response, the FAA and Department of Defense launched a joint task force to reevaluate procedures for managing shared airspace near major cities. One recommendation under discussion is creating digitally linked airspace management systems between civilian and military agencies, reducing human error and increasing automatic alerts when flight paths intersect. This tragic event served as a painful reminder that even in an era of automation and advanced radar, human error and procedural gaps can still lead to disaster. It was the deadliest U.S. air disaster in over 15 years, and its impact is still unfolding as investigations and policy changes continue in 2025. Is air travel becoming more dangerous? With tragic events like the ones we just covered, it's natural to wonder, is air travel becoming more dangerous? Surprisingly, the data says no. According to the National Safety Council, the number of accidents involving U.S.-registered civilian aircraft decreased from 1,277 in 2022 to 1,216 in 2023. More importantly, fatalities dropped from 358 to 327 in that same time frame. That's not just a marginal improvement, that's lives saved due to better technology, stricter training, and smarter oversight. When we focus on major airlines, the record is even more encouraging. In 2023, there were 0 onboard fatalities for U.S. commercial airlines, according to the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. The fatal accident rate for these airlines was an astounding 0.0 per 100,000 flight hours. To put it into perspective, you're far more likely to die in a car accident or even a fall in your own home than on a commercial flight. Contrast that with general aviation, small private planes, and non-commercial flights, which had a fatal accident rate of 0.762 per 100,000 flight hours in 2023. This segment continues to carry higher risks, often due to less stringent regulations, limited pilot training, and aging aircraft. Conclusion: the 5 crashes we've explored today were horrifying, heartbreaking, and in some cases preventable. They cost hundreds of lives and left scars that still linger in the communities affected. Yet each one also served as a turning point, triggering reforms, improving technologies, and forcing the industry to ask difficult questions. The truth is, aviation today is safer than ever before. Every bolt tightened, every checklist verified, and every protocol followed is built on the hard lessons learned from tragedies past. So the next time you board a plane, remember, behind that smooth takeoff and soft landing lies decades of hard-earned safety innovation and relentless improvement. While these 5 disasters were devastating, they are exceptions, not the norm. Air travel in the United States remains remarkably safe. In fact, 2023 saw 0 onboard fatalities among major airlines, a testament to the industry's commitment to continuous safety improvements. Thank you for watching. If you found this video thought-provoking or informative, please like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Which of these stories impacted you most? Let us know. Until next time, stay safe and keep your curiosity flying high.